I think between this group here, you should be able to take on the world in an hour from now, especially if you're on the design sector. So my name's Caroline Nelson. I'm the country manager for H&M here in South Africa. I've been with H&M for 18 years, so I've been around for a long time, but I've been here in South Africa for 4 years, which feels like 4 months, but it's been 4 years. And it's been such a cool experience because I've really gotten to know and get ingrained into many different communities here and how to approach business from a brand perspective. And I can tell you it's also challenging for an international brand to build in South Africa too, the same way it is for South African brands to build in other parts of the world. So I think there are challenges for many different people. Of course, we are a huge company with big scale, but we'll also talk about that a little bit throughout the panel too, and maybe how those sort of partnerships can benefit smaller designers as well in the long term. So with that, I will jump into it, and we're going to start with you, Brad, and talk a little bit about Amen. So both you and Abia are unapologetically unique and have been coined as bringing brand new meaning to the fashion of living. So tell us a little bit about Amen and how you've managed to build something that marries African design and global appeal so well.
Yes, we are unapologetic. We break the rules. We break the rules in everything. I mean, not only are we business partners, we also married. So that's breaking a rule already. Like they say, don't mix business and love life. We've done it. But we've so far managed to do it pretty successfully. There have been many hurdles along the way, many challenges. We studied fashion together. And after completing our studies, we jumped right in. And we had our own camera. We put together our first collection. We called on people that we thought we had looks that appealed to us. And we started putting our first shoots or campaigns out there. And to our surprise, after our first campaign, we got recognized by formal media, and we were in newspapers and this and that. And that was a big tap on our back, a boost for us. And we've always, we've been inspired by the Joburg youth culture, have inspired a lot of our collections. But we do like to push the boundaries with fashion. We like to push the boundaries with gender norms. And these are things that are unapologetic. It doesn't always sit well with people. Our name didn't sit well with people within the certain people within the fashion industry initially. We got excluded from Fashion Week because of our name. But we used it to our advantage to create media hype around it. And I think that's helped us just to stabilize our brand and our identity, who we are. We don't go out of our way to upset people, but I think just naturally we've got quite an out there look on fashion, and we just like to push the boundaries. But then, sometimes that also comes with challenges of which we have found and we're trying to get better and better at it. Because with pushing the boundaries, it's also trying to find how do you cater to a wide target market? How do you grow your business in terms of financial numbers? But still trying to keep your identity of who you are, a brand, because you can water down your collections, but you don't want to lose who you are. And that has been a challenge for us, but it also, we're getting there on learning more and more, how do we keep our identity and grow as a brand?
Fantastic. Can I ask a follow-up question then? Because I think when we think of the fashion industry, it's usually thought of by people who feel like they'll be included regardless. So being excluded for your name, for example, must have been quite a challenge in a community that should be very inclusive. But it seems like that strengthened you guys.
It was heartbreaking. Initially, it was heartbreaking. It was something we always dreamt about. And then, it really just broke us down. But, we took it on head on, and just to try to turn a bad situation into an opportunity. And using social media, it was a time on Twitter where you could tag people in pictures, and we were tagging them on the headline that we had been rejected. And the next thing, we were trending on Twitter. So it was using traditional media platforms, contacting all media that we knew, and then using the new media platforms just to try to turn a bad situation into something that's going to work for us and the name.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic lesson, I think, for everyone in this room, especially if you're just getting started. Don't let people take you down.
No,
yes.
You can't. You got to be a bulldog in business.
Yes, 100%. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, Rihanna, I'm going to move over to you. So Sorry for Change has been riding the shift in the fashion industry for 6 years with a single focus on sustainable production through people, planet, and profit. Often brands that start with a mission for social upliftment and sustainability as their core business strategy are challenged to create scale and have market impact. What's different about Sorry for Change, and how have you built a brand that's defying the odds?
We're a community, and our process starts with sari wearers who no longer needs their saris, and they donate them to us with a mandate that we should empower or improve another woman's life. We take this mandate very seriously. We upskill women who have been sitting in townships, no employment, no skills, and we take them through a 3-tier training program. The sari itself, the sari lends itself to so much beauty and femininity. And when you drape a sari on your body, there's a certain energy that goes with it. Combine that with the community that's not only sold into our concept, but they in turn want the end pieces to keep as heirloom pieces, to keep as heritage pieces. And then, of course, the fabrics itself. We can't over-design. We can't really do a whole lot in terms of the design, because we try to honor the initial designer of the sari. And so whatever we create, we have to see that it still maintains the same flow as what the original wearer would wear. The fact that from the sari donor to the maker who has been trained by us, it's quite a long process to the end user or wearer, the conscious consumer. That's what's been the big shift for us. There's been a huge increase of conscious consumers.
And so even though that's a shift in current mindset globally, here especially, it's definitely shifting that way. You found an opportunity to grow your business out of that instead of being scared by it.
We had to recognize straight on that we were a disruptor. We were a disruptor, and to be a disruptor, you have to put on your activist hat. And I've been an activist before apartheid, and so this helped me in good stead. I could ask the difficult questions. I could engage with anybody at whatever level and really just want to understand, what are you doing differently? What is the end result? Is there real impact? And I bring this down to, as much as we are focused in the industry on the design, the look, but there also has to be a very strong philosophy. And we have pinned it down to the 3 C's. There has to be a consciousness, a new kind of consciousness. There has to be a connection. how are we connecting not just to ourselves, but also the clothes that we're wearing, the food that we're eating. And then lastly, continuity. Because of all of that, we build, and as a business, we take all of those ingredients to build a model that can work.
Fantastic, thank you. So from one disruptor then to, well, from two disruptors maybe to a third one. Chris, you're also disrupting the way things are done to really help to build something fantastic here locally. And you started a company that closes the gap between sustainable fast fashion and the challenges associated with lacking technological investments in African textile production. Can you tell us a little bit more about Job?
Technical investment has been a challenge because I'm moving from rand now. I'm moving to dollar phase. Wish me luck, guys! Yay, hala. It's been challenging because the industry is unfortunately run by limited mindsets. I think that's the politically correct word saying, right? Limited mindsets whereby it can only be done this way. This is the only way. This is the need. The need expands, and my market is SMMEs, so your small businesses. So those who want to provide on platforms like your takealot.com, your Superbalist. SMMEs cannot put 1,000 garments in a fulfillment center. That will bankrupt a little SMME. Who's taking care of them? The aim is to produce under 50 garments within 72 hours. The challenge I'm facing now is quality output on time. And this boils down back to collaboration as well. So yes, the technological side of it, looking at the technology, I'm moving into phase 2 now, and I'm working through live streaming activation as well as monitoring the process of producing your garment via gamification and live streaming as well. So you can actually watch your garment being made, just like an Uber ride, the same principle. So I'm hoping this puts us on a competitive level on an international platform, and then also looking forward to the next 5 years whereby we look at how do 5IR come into play for our continent. What does that mean? How does humans cannot without AI, and AI cannot without human beings? So we're looking at 3D printed fashion, wearable 3D fashion, printable fashion in Africa by Africans. Who's sustaining these machines? Who's coding these machines? By Africans, for Africans, and sending it out into the rest of the world, because Africa is so amazing. Like the things that our kids are doing. Just to bring back to, I have a little nephew. He wanted a cell phone. He's 8 years old. He wanted a cell phone so he could take it apart and rebuild it because he wants to build his own cell phone. So let's just plug this kid in, man. Plug him in and play. As easy as that, I guess. At home.
Amazing. So then maybe I can ask you a follow-up then question more about the people then that you're working with. So can you just tell us a little bit more about how you are partnering with textile workers and putting them together with the right designers, and how you're facilitating training with the textile workers in order to upskill them to work with more technological processes?
Collaboration. This word is thrown around a little bit too loosely without it actually being implemented, I should say. Everybody cannot be in charge. I got to know what my lane is, you got to know what your lane is, and I'm comfortable in my lane. Why do I have to reinvent the wheel? We've got beautiful programs like your program that you have running right now. When saris are not in demand at that moment in time, can your lady produce 49 t-shirts, for example? There's my collaboration. How do I ensure that the correct textile worker is paired with what the designer / fashion brand owner wants? We're starting out with specialized technical packs. The technical packs are digitized, meaning that the person is able to read the technical pack from start to finish and ensure that sample is to the T. So the vision that I have in place. I took 1.5 years out of my business, and I just manually did the process that's supposed to be plugged into AI, understanding, am I answering the questions that my customer really wants answered? And then also meeting needs like minimum order quantities, things like textile producers on demand, things like are we enabling communities, and looking at things like hood problems. Are we solving hood problems? I was just having a conversation with a lovely young lady over there, and we were saying we want to support Proudly Africa. We want to support Proudly South Africa. But how do we ensure the price is competitive? Because we don't want to spend 300 Rand more, but I mean, as to support, I'd spend 30 Rand more, maybe even 70 Rand. And then it's coming back to looking at the business model as well to ensure that the customer, so we're working from the customer back, are we ensuring that the customer is getting what they want as well, and ensuring that my customer, because there's a difference, ensuring that they also getting met what they need.
Okay, I think you described it last week when we connected as Uber for production. I think that's quite
Uber
cool
for
because
production,
it really helps though from a sustainability angle too, because you're only making what you need, right? Yes.
Only making what you get.
Yes.
And yes, and we also want to ensure that we're sustainable. And how do we drop that price, but not taking away from the textile worker and not taking away from the designer as well.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Brad, back over to you. So as you have scaled, how have you managed to stay true to your brand's cultural heritage, and what are some of the challenges that you faced?
I think working in with a duo, we keep each other in check, that we keep true to our design aesthetic, who we are, what we are about. But as a young designer, someone that brand that's still trying to make it, you hear so much, whether it's from people that come into your pop-up shop and tell you what they like, what they don't like, what your parents tell you, why it's not going to work, what you've seen around, and just there's so much noise. And some of it you got to listen to or consider it, because fashion is about business, and fashion business is about making sales. And how do you, as a brand that is trying to be a ready-to-wear brand, where a customer is buying off rail, how do you and what do you produce something that would appeal to a consumer? You know, we're not typically a brand that wants to follow trends. And it's a very often, the business side of it is a very trend-driven industry. And I think it's an ongoing challenge to try and find, I think for us, a niche market who is a loyal consumer. And I think that is our sustainable approach, is finding a niche market, creating statement pieces that aren't trend-based, that aren't that are not seasonal, and you can wear them in 5-10 years' time, you know. But it's constantly collection after collection, a learning curve, to try and understand the consumer. And the consumer can, I think, drive a designer mad sometimes when you are trying to understand what they want. I'm sure with big organizations, I mean, the buyers are also, they're trying to understand consumers. And it's a challenge season after season. And as smaller designers, we're also trying to understand our consumers, what they want. And we've just got to do the shuffle, do the dance, and to work around of how we're going to get through this season by increasing our sales from year to year. but it's constantly a learning experience.
Yeah. And I think you raise a really good point with that business side and that element. I think most designers start off purely thinking creative and not really thinking, is this the thing that's going to make me my paycheck every month? It's more, I want to be a creative, whatever that takes. And then, the reality is, I think it's in after a while that maybe it's not transitioning into a business model. And then you have to start to find some balance there. And I think that's often where, especially for us now, obviously we're a big brand, but whenever we do a big public speaking or speak at a design school, you have a line and everyone's saying, how do I grow my brand overnight? How do I make a lot of money without maybe doing everything that you talked about, the back and forth, deciding where your principles are, where the design is, what you're going to stick through to, and then turn that into a business model. I think that's often forgotten. So I think it's very good advice for everyone in the room. Cool. So then maybe speaking about bigger businesses, we can talk about a partnership, Rihanna, that you recently had. So you recently partnered with Pick and Pay, and often bigger retailers are seen as the enemy of smaller design houses. So where did you find synergies that helped you build your brand? Where were successes and challenges, and what advice would you give to a smaller brand partnering with bigger brands in order to scale without losing who you fundamentally are as a brand?
Okay, so that's 3 big questions.
Yes, it is. You can take them any way you like.
So Pick and Pay came about, as I mentioned earlier, that you have to have an activist brain to be able to just move the business forward. And we were looking at Sustainable Fashion Week, which normally happens during March. And I realized that not a lot of brands were participating. And I was quite disturbed about this, feeling, we all needed to be on the same page and let us hone in and see how we can collaborate together. And if that was just driving a campaign, because I feel obviously I work in the sustainable space, so a lot of the time we educating and informing clients, because not everyone knows what sustainability is, and it's different things for different people. I think it's the most used word in the industry right now. And then there's a lot of whitewashing and greenwashing that also takes place. So I wanted to go straight there and really say, let us work together as a collective and see how we can get this message across. Didn't quite happen that way, because I'm a little tiny company, and here I am, pitching to a big corporate. But where we did agree on was, let us do a media campaign together. And in that way, I could use your clothing because we needed their inners, and I would adorn it with our beautiful silk garments and stuff, and that seemed to work. So we did a media campaign in the very beginning. It was the most beautiful campaign that we did with Pick and Pay. And it was really just for us saying, we're going to wow you. You're not going to be able to say no to us. And after the campaign, needless to say, we did. And we could then have the necessary conversations around bringing in sustainable dresses to a select few of the stores. Never has this been done before. I mean, you literally went to Pick and Pay and could buy one of our wrap dresses, and it was gently worn fabric. So it took thrifting to a whole different level, first of all. Needless to say, they sold out within the first launch weekend. It was absolutely crazy. But the lessons were, first of all, when approaching collaborations of this sort, I think we need to be realistic as to what we want to get out. Pricing is always a point of contention, and that's really where we do start fighting. But I felt we needed to work together to be able to prove to each other, after it all, what is possible after. So my first goal out was for my hubs to be able to produce to the quality and the standard expected of a bigger brand. For them to understand, slow fashion versus fast fashion. And yeah, it was a huge learning curve for them. They benefited, my hub in Cosmicity in Johannesburg, and it really was for them. If we broke even, I'm being very kind about it, but what we got out as a business, we got amazing PR.
Yes.
And so it was them deciding, I'm happy to take PR, you take the business, we can leverage with this. Where do we go from here? So obviously we're in our second round of collaborations, and we'll see where we want to take that to. But the lesson is, do not be bullied. If you are confident about your value proposition, be firm about it. Don't let anyone take it away from you. And if you have proof of evidence that this is working, if you have to, walk away. Not all brands are meant to work together. It's a very firm stand, especially in a fragile economy. We see business and we really, really need the business and we want the business. We're going to make it work. But you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, did I sell myself short? What did I compromise on? And that's really our takeaways from it. Other than Pick n Pay, we also managed to get into the Big Blue stores countrywide. That was immediately after Pick n Pay. And again, an example in case was, if we weren't going to make money on the first collaboration, how did we leverage with other brands? And so Big Blue came along and we were able to.
I think you've given some really great advice, because I think finding the right partner, for one, is very important. Making sure that you together can work and make it happen without compromising your brand. But then sometimes you do have to take a risk, at least for that first big one, that maybe this isn't going to be the thing that makes you rich, but it could be the thing that makes you famous, which may then eventually make you rich. So it's always those compromises when you start to scale. Where can you find some balance? So I think you gave some fantastic advice.
And the beautiful thing is, it's not always about the money. You know, we attach so much of emphasis, we have to make the money, but we need to look and see the bigger picture always. And working in a sustainable space where largely the first few years has been around educating and informing consumers about what we're doing and why we're doing it this way. And then the next big task is educating our clients, our consumers. And what happens is, you're either going to try it and you're going to be surprised, but it's stepping into the unknown, and that's the challenge. And so what I'd like to ask you, Caroline, is, when you have a situation where you yourself are not sure within your organization, what is the approach you take?
Let me narrow that down, because that could hit lots of different areas. But do you mean specifically with a design partnership?
Yes, collaboration.
Yeah, I think for us, very similar actually to what you just said. We are very invested in the people behind the brand first, you know, before the brand itself. So if you look at some of our local collaborations, so we had Rich Manisi last year, Yay Ape the year before that, we had Namel, Mansu. So we've done some good local collaborations, but it's important for us to really want to work with the designer themselves or the brand, to make sure that, to your point, we can collaborate in a way that's going to feel natural, that doesn't feel forced. Of course, there's always going to be some conflict of, you know, who wants what, but ultimately you want to be working with people who are in line with your values. And then once we've established that, then the rest of the work happens. But we wouldn't enter into a contract with someone who was like absolutely hectic but had beautiful clothing. You know what I mean? There has to be that initial synergy and energy together in order to make that work. So I think that homework is almost more important than what you want the outcome to be. And then it needs to be, for us, it needs to be people who want to be successful and who want a global stage. So very similar to how you approached with Pick and Pay, actually. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So then, Chris, well, let's head back over to you. So we've spoken now a lot about like culture, traditions, remaining true to your brand. How do you grow? For you, then, working now in this way to try and help support African textile workers, manufacturers, and designers. You're taking everybody in together to create products that remain true to our cultures and traditions while still keeping up with international trends and appeal. And then at the same time, you're trying to do that while meeting exporting requirements to become an international brand. And I think that's the challenge when you look at production in general in South Africa is there's a lot of people making things, but it's very difficult to sell them on a global scale because there are a lot of different standards. And if you look at even the new law now that's come into France around sustainability and traceability, if we want to grow bigger, then here we have to align to what the rest of the world is looking for too. How are you working that into your very futuristic way of making garments?
It's all about registering now with the future goals in mind. So, for example, when I started the business, I initially registered with being proudly South African marked. So every designer and every producer is automatically under that banner, that mark of being proudly South African. Being able to be proudly South African and using that little stamp, you actually have to be registered for it and go through a whole process for it. It's not just, oh, I'm South African, I have a green ID booklet, or a little card, I can use this sticker. So that automatically gives everybody associated with the brand job that qualify under that branding. Then it's also being associated with organizations like CEDA. So I've traveled the world with CEDA before, and with that exposure, I've also managed to sustain relationships, moving down to collaboration. So within CEDA, Small Enterprise Development Agency of South Africa, they've got a they've got a little section called She Trade. She Trade helps female based when you have an organization owned for 51% or more of females, and they assist you in being export ready because Dubai has different requirements to what New York has, New York to Milan and so on. So those are the things that I'm doing now on the ground, so that when I do get to the point of, because my business is within the numbers, the more work I get in, the more profits I can make, the more sustainable I can be within my business. This is not passion driven per se. My passion is to empower the people though, but we need money to make money. Let's be realistic. And my passion is business. So it's moving on to that. And how do I get this foundation done now so that when I get to that point, I know, hey girl, I got you, let's go to Dubai. I've got this opportunity. It's September now. God willing, by next year, September, I can give more people opportunity because CEDA will be doing exhibitions in Milan. And these are opportunities that I could advertise to my peers, not being ready personally for it, but now I've already got a database and I could actually encourage CEDA to take a handful of those people along with them to Milan this month.
Okay, fantastic. So you mentioned She Trade. That's it. Okay, so maybe then Rihanna will move back over to you. I think that's a great follow up to that comment, because as a brand, you strongly believe in investing in women and having women, empowering them to grow your businesses, and they help uplift people from poverty. So why is this mission so integral to Sari for Change?
First of all, I'm an ambassador on She Trades, but the international brand. We were invited by United Nations last year. They chose 5 companies. We were one of the 5 globally to present at COP28. And COP28 was when I realized the rest of the world wants our data. They want to understand what we're doing on the ground, how we're doing it, and how we are actually creating the impact. So it was very eye-opening for us, like I started off from my garage and suddenly, this brand was growing, and standing there and realizing that we are doing it. And women empowerment for me is living it on every level. I see women that start out in our incubation hubs. We have, at the moment, we have 3 active hubs where they are taken through a three-tier training program. They start with absolutely no skills. They've been unemployed for 3 years. They learn how to use a sewing machine from scratch. And then they make little bags. Those bags we buy back, and it's part of our packaging budget. So they are earning immediately. The joy when they are earning from a new skill that they've learned. That's tier 1. Tier 2 is where they actually start learning how to make garments and looking into the communities as to what they can solve. So we've had women doing uniforms, women making aprons for entrepreneurs in the restaurant industry. And this is such a simple program, but they are solving issues in the community. We set them up in their homes, in the township. They have safe spaces, and holistically they bring in their aunts, their friends, their sisters to come and learn. In 2020, we received an award from Goldman Sachs and Fortune Media for what they described as the Pay It Forward system. I won the Global Leader, Female Leader Award, and it really was bittersweet, as I would have wanted to be recognized in South Africa. That's where the work gets done, but you got to start somewhere. But ultimately, the work that we do, the children are the beneficiaries, and that's what we do it for. To see their lives improve, to hear the stories of women who can now take their kids to school, go to universities. This is what it's about. We need skills. We need to teach people how they can turn these skills into a business, a small business. And as entrepreneurs, we can help, we can work together. And then further down the line, we're now looking at social entrepreneurs. What does that look like? That too has shifted. And I feel like there needs to be a lot more emphasis and work done around social entrepreneurships, because we're feeding our wings directly back into the community. And there are not a lot of tick boxes for us. So how we work, we have a hybrid model. We have a foundation that we've recently registered, where all our training and development work sits under the foundation. And then we have a strong business model, which is our brand, and that sits on the business side. They work together. There are few overlaps. On our final training program, which is tier 3, they then move over to the business side because they become our suppliers.
Fantastic. It's very inspiring. So really nice to hear. Okay, Brad, I'm going to leave you with the final question before I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So if you were to give advice to any young designers in the room here or up and coming designers who have started and have kind of maybe feel like they've plateaued, they want to scale but just don't know how to take the next step, what sort of advice would you give?
You know, I think in life we all get to points where we are stagnant. And I think in business, I believe, businesses that grow, it's about money. And as creatives, we shouldn't, and creative, social changes, whatever, we mustn't shy away from talking about money. I want money. I want to be rich. Every brand does it. The big brands. Every year they're looking at their profits, how much bigger we got from year to year. And we can still be social changes. We can still be sustainable, but we also need money in our bank accounts, because it's actually more stressful at the end of the month when you can't pay your bills. And we shouldn't shy away from that. Whether you're a young designer working with a private client and you making a dress for them, asking for a deposit, getting them to sign your design, then they want changes, then they want this. Okay, that is going to be extra. We have to do those things. Collaborations, PR is great, but it doesn't pay the bills often. Dressing celebrities, it's lovely, but it doesn't always bring the money. And it's good we did it initially. We were dressing every celebrity in South Africa, and we were often never getting the stuff returned either. And people start exploiting you. And you're the one that's taking the knocks the whole time. But you get to a point where you're fed up. We got to a point where we're fed up. And we started making wiser decisions of who we want to associate with. It's like how they say when you get older, your friends get smaller, your friend group. And I think we should also be who we want to work with, because I want to work with someone that is, at the end of the day, we both coming out with money. At the end of the day, basically.
Thank you very much, Brad. I think that's a really good way to to wrap it up. But I think we brought that point up throughout. Sometimes it's difficult to find that balance between both.
Yeah, I think it's about finding that balance. And our journeys are all different, right? So for me, it was how do we improve? How do we leave something in a better condition? And this could align to an SDG, a Sustainable Development Goal. And I felt like in South Africa, with the terrible statistics that we have, we can't depend on our leaders or government. We have to shift into a very strong participation mode within our own lives. And this is the first thing, the first module that I teach in our programs. How do you shift your mindset into thinking that you don't need to go and find a job and get up early hours of the morning and leave your children behind? You can learn a skill and stay in your space and still put food on the table. But you must have that willingness, and you must have that motivation. But most of all, you must have a dream, a vision. And I find that in our space, when women discover their skills, their vision, and that someone actually supports them, magic happens. Magic happens. So I think we all have great ideas. We all understand business. But find your tribe. Find the people that are really applauding you and believe in you. And find a mentor. Mentorship is so, so important. Someone who's walked that road before. So go and ask, go and knock on doors, email, find those people on social media and say, I need a mentor and I recognize that in you. Can you give me a bit of time?
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one, maybe two questions. Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question to anyone in our panel?
Thank you. Nicola Cooper, trend analyst, cultural strategist, work with most of the major South African retailers, some global brands. I think my question is to, I guess, the emotional speak around design business is that, yes, we speak about sustainability. There's only 2 registered green factories in South Africa. What's really critical at this particular moment in time is economic sustainability. And I think what we're doing in terms of this discussion for smaller businesses is lumping them with a lot of responsibility. And I think that, Brad and I were speaking earlier that they've got to sustain their own businesses first before they can start echoing into supporting other people's businesses. And I think my comment around scalability is that, because just to the entrepreneurs in the room is like, as Brad was saying, there's nothing wrong with wanting money, nothing wrong with wanting a successful business. We are not just in it, we are not non-profits. If you are a business, you want to live well off of doing what you love, and I don't think that needs to be a compromise in terms of your self-beliefs and the opportunity for success. So my question is really around, I understand it's a balance, but don't you think it's a lot to ask of a business that's just starting out?
I think I'd like to answer that. I think this is what comes with the territory when running a business. Managing your expectations and understanding that it's not going to be easy. And I look forward to those challenging days where I have a bloodshot eye because, oh my God, how am I going to get these people in Hong Kong to send me a little bit of Hong Kong dollar to ensure that I can make 2 times more? And it's looking at it from a realistic point of view and coming back to what you were saying. Find your mentors, find your tribe, because it does come down to you need that emotional support, mental support, because it can get you down. And when the days are dark, it is down there. And that is the time where for me personally, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it because it looks like I come back to a man 27 years ago, was working in a quarry on Robben Island, and and he was the first man, first black president of a racist country. So if he could do it, what's stopping me? And those are the clawing up moments as well.
I agree with, the expectations are high and what you need to do, and the targets are high. We've gone to CEDA, we've gone to DTI, and the expectations of how much money your business is supposed to make, it doesn't really sound like a small business enterprise. And what about the people down there that are trying to start a business? How are they getting support? Because there's a lot of red tape.
I think as entrepreneurs, we all have a story. And with a story, there's a resonance for choosing to do what we do. For me, I was a single parent with 4 children. So I had mouths to feed. And when I figured that out, I knew that I wanted to teach women how to become self-sufficient. Starting with knowing what I want and then sharing it with many different organizations and communities. It happened. I knew I wanted to use the Sari as a 6 meter of fabric resource. My first call out, my first organization that partnered with us, Art of Living, sent all their volunteers out every Friday to go and collect saris. It rained saris, boxes and boxes of saris. So I believe if you feel strongly about something, it will come. And you find the right partners, like I said earlier, the believers, to help you make it happen. We have all these beautiful sayings in Africa, Ubuntu, okay? There is that spirit here, and we should use it. And I'm not saying we're not making money.
Thank you very much. I think, did you want to? We're good. We're good. All right. I think we're just out of time, so we only had time for the one question, but I think a big round of applause for our amazing panelists. Thank you so much. And maybe you'll stick around if there's any questions for you for a couple of minutes outside of the stage. Okay. Thank you, everyone.